There's been a lot of discussion and debate about the Boring Company's Vegas loop in terms of its purported benefits among both transit fans and otherwise. Unfortunately, I feel a lot of this discussion has been built around confusing statistical data regarding the system's fundamental ability to transport passengers. It's a cherry picker's dream. Vegas Loop fans can claim that it's more efficient than a subway, while haters can claim that it can barely carry anything, both using stats that at a glance seem to contradict each other. So what I'm going to focus on with this video is the Vegas Loop's capacity, why the two sides have come to a different conclusion, and why under current plans its capacity will likely remain restrictive. As a disclaimer, I am going to try and take the Boring Company's plans at face value. Part of the issue at play is just that the company isn't very transparent with things like station and tunnel designs, routing, or the methodology for their operational plans. So at least part of the assumption for this system design is idealised, and I want to give the Vegas Loop the best possible chance it can to prove itself as a valuable addition to a city's transportation infrastructure. And under its current operations, it seems to be working decently enough for what it was built for, a convention centre people mover. But I believe that what exists right now is probably the most efficient version of the system, and that it is not designed for effective expansion on a city-wide scale. A big selling point for the Vegas Loop is that it is meant to be more efficient than a fixed rail system while still having a respectable capacity. However, the Boring Company has been deceptive in their advocacy of the system's passenger capacity. A rule of thumb I have is that if someone tries to promote themselves using wording or statistical choice that isn't standard for what they're trying to prove, put up your guard. Like here on the website, where they try to make the point that the loop is faster than a subway because its vehicles have a higher top speed, when average speeds is a far more relevant metric. The loop probably really is faster than a subway, so why are they being awkward about this fact? The big problem statistic is the claim that the system will transport 90,000 passengers per hour, an upgrade from their previous claim of 57,000 passengers per hour. Passengers per hour is a very ambiguous metric. I'm assuming it's how many people exit or enter the system each hour. That's an okay statistic to figure out usage, particularly for individual stations or lines. But it's actually not a measure of system capacity, since station usage can vary quite significantly. Those 90,000 passengers are probably not spread equally around the entire map, or making journeys that are of equal length, so the statistic fails to tell us about any potential capacity bottlenecks. The actual statistic we should be using is passenger throughput. At a fixed point in the system, how many passengers can pass through that point over a period of time in an ideal scenario? In something like the Munich S-Bahn, trains travel through its central section about every 3 minutes. These trains have a certified passenger capacity of 544 and can be coupled to be up to 3 units long. 2 units is the most common configuration, so just assuming that every train is made of that for simplicity, the Munich S-Bahn's throughput capacity is 21,760 people per hour in each direction. In the Vegas Loop, a 3-seat car is sent off a headway of about every 6 seconds. That's 30 people a minute and a capacity of 1,800 people an hour per tunnel in each direction. Less than the Munich S-Bahn and much less than the ambiguous 90,000 passengers per hour figure that the company prefers to say out loud. So why is that an issue? In short, because when you add new branches to a system, the capacity of the whole system takes a hit. The Boring Company currently claims that their system can transport over 4,400 people per hour, which was their target for the initial convention centre system. And looking at the data, if you have 4 tunnels with a capacity of 1,800 each, I think that 4,400 figure is easily possible to surpass. However, they are not planning to continue building a linear system where that calculation continues to work. What the Boring Company is proposing is a dense network around the Vegas Strip, with dozens of branches and stations all along the route. Let's compare this to Munich again, where the fact that multiple lines converge down a central tunnel has the effect of constraining capacity on the branches. You technically could run a train every 3 minutes down one of these branches, but you don't have the space to do that on every branch and also merge that into the centre. The capacity of the centre of the network determines the capacity of everything else, but that isn't a big deal in Munich because the S-Bahn's branches serve not as dense locations with less need for super frequent departures. That is not the case in Vegas. Let's say that on their proposed map, we declare that we are going to be measuring capacity here. Only 1,800 people can cross this line in each direction per hour, despite the fact that there are branches all over the place to casinos and various other points of interest, all of which have their own capacity limits of 1,800 as well. This forces the system into two options. Limit capacity on the branches to ensure the capacity of the core routes aren't exceeded, or accept that you will see immense amounts of congestion, and the former is very difficult when what counts as a core route isn't very clear. We go from a few high capacity branches on the periphery in the S-Bahn model to dozens of very low capacity branches everywhere in the Vegas Loop model, and the former is just much better at absorbing passenger numbers than the latter. It is a flaw that's hidden at the moment when what you've built around the convention centre loop is linear and non-branching, but it will quickly become evident the moment you start adding branches to the system. I'd even go as far as to say that the Vegas Strip is an environment that is uniquely flawed for the kind of service that the loop wants to provide. For example, TBC wishes to have two north-south tunnels along the strip to serve two different clusters of hotels. But these routes still merge at either end, have junctions on both sides, and an east-west route through the middle. All of these are capacity bottlenecks, and the result is that these 17 stations must share the same 7,200 passengers that are actually able to physically enter the section each hour, keeping in mind that each of the four entrances won't be used equally. The passengers won't be distributed to each station equally at all times. There will be riders trying to travel between the two stations within this area, as well as people who are just trying to pass through. This is again a recipe for congestion, and a clear example of a place where linear, high-capacity solution would be far superior to the loop. There's another element to the loop that is important to mention, and that is its inability to absorb large waves of passengers at once. It has been pitched as a transportation option for the Allegiant Stadium or the Thomas & Mack Centre. Allegiant has an NFL capacity of 65,000. Thomas & Mack has a basketball capacity of 18,000. The Boring Company proposes 2 stations each for both of these stadia. At 3,600 passenger departures per hour, keeping in mind that the tunnels are the capacity constraint, not the station designs, and again assuming both stations are used equally, it would take 18 hours to fill or empty Allegiant Stadium, and 5 hours to do the same to Thomas & Mack. The smallness of the loop compared to the destinations it is meant to serve is a reminder of how the loop's capacity is not built for purpose. What about something like Brightline West? They seem to want to use 7-car Siemens Velaro Novo trains for this service, which can be paired up. That's about 800 passengers per train, with an ambition of an arrival every 22.5 minutes in the long term. The loop doesn't have the capacity to pick up everybody who arrives on a Brightline. With that in mind, how can the loop possibly cope with a Brightline arriving at the same time that an NFL game ends? Add to that all these resorts that put on concerts and shows and have heavy amounts of very peaky passenger flows. In my opinion, the Boring Company couldn't have chosen a worse place to test out a low capacity on-demand system. I want to finish this off by addressing what I think will be the most common counterclaims to capacity issues. That the loop can just upgrade to bigger vehicles, and they can build additional tunnels for express traffic. For bigger vehicles, that is indeed a way of improving system capacity, and I do believe they will introduce some kind of high capacity vehicle option in the future. What must be noted, however, is two things. First, bigger vehicles add a lot of extra travel time to what is meant to be a point-to-point system, as now these buses are making stops, are picking up and dropping up passengers, and are slower to manoeuvre around tight corners. It turns a legitimate strength of the loop into this awkward, almost but not really BRT system. Second, bigger vehicles don't change the fact that how many vehicles can physically roam the loop is still the same. If the number of vehicles you have don't change, but they make more stops and take longer to dispatch from each station, then the actual per vehicle capacity of the system will likely decrease. That is a good thing. Passenger capacity still increases, and that efficiency is for the benefit of public transportation. But congestion will remain an issue. New operational constraints limit the capacity benefits, and you've basically sacrificed the big selling point of the loop in favour of just making a low capacity BRT system that likely won't abandon the Teslas in tunnels meme entirely. Second, express lanes is at least part of the pitch, that vehicles driving long distances can move on to high-speed dedicated routes for chunk of the journey, bypassing the place where a bunch of stations connect to a local tunnel. My response to this is a lot simple. The TPC have not demonstrated how this will work in practice, or even how fast these tunnels can actually be. And these express tunnels will still need to connect to the local tunnels somewhere, so all these extra tunnels will do is create new capacity bottlenecks. And maybe even make existing ones worse, since you're adding new traffic alongside the extra capacity. You know, induced demand. So to wrap up, I wanted to make this video because I felt that a lot of people have discussed the capacity concerns about the Vegas loop, but no one has really been able to put their finger on what exactly is wrong with the numbers. I hope this video helps to demonstrate that the loop concept has a capacity problem that is inherent to the mode itself. I am not inherently opposed to flexible, low-capacity modes of transport, just that Las Vegas is not a place that will benefit from it in the long term.